Hi, nice to see y'all. Thank you for joining me. And today you find me at my mi casa pueblo, donde vivo. And today we're just gonna do a little overview of a story time. And what better place than to do it in my house, in my sister's room? Yes. And it's very artistic. I painted the tree on behalf of this. And we're gonna see how things go. So let's do it. Also, don't mind this. We're only about a couple days until it falls and kills somebody. Nah, I'm just joking. It's cotton though, from the top. So you might wonder why I'm here in this room specifically if it's full of stuff. Might have wanted to clean it up a little or rearrange some things, but in all honesty, being in this room is about the only other room that I get to be in where I don't feel like I'm remembering everything from my childhood. And when you live somewhere for an extended period of time, whether that's 1, 2, 5, 6 years, or so on and so forth, you have a tendency to remind yourself of a lot of things that happened in the past. And with this room specifically, that's not always the case. Sometimes I feel more comforted than other rooms, but specifically this room because it's my sister's. And this delves into the story that I wanted to talk about, and this is knowing God's presence. When I moved here when I was 1 digit years old, how about that? We'll do that. 1 digit years old. So I was still 1 digit, and I was very young. I ended up moving here with my mom and my dad. And around this time, I'm by myself. So, come a point in time where I end up staying here for a long, up until that point, from when I moved in to when I had my baby sister. I want to guess about 2, 3 years after the fact that we lived there. And I have my little sister, and I'm cool about it. You know, we're both young still. And I want to say around that time when we had her, when my mom had her, I had just turned double digits. So about 10, maybe. Oh, well, yeah, 10, sorry. And I had just turned 10, and I thought, I don't know, I'm just living like any other little child, going out to play after school. I'm just coming home to see that my friends were at the door waiting for me. And they'd come and knock at the door, and my mom would be like, "Your friends are here." And I just go, and oh, look, here are my friends. Or maybe one or two, right? So around that time is when I hadn't really known God up in that whole time span, right when I had turned 10 and before I had gotten my sister. And I never knew God. I didn't know what it was. But part of me always felt like I didn't know why I was here at a very young age. And it really started coming through when I had turned 10. And from there, I continued on. And I want to say a year had passed, maybe about a year. And I just ended up going in my room one day. My mom ended up telling me, "Look, son, you have to make a decision. Do you want to stay with your or dad, or do you want to come with me? And being the age I'm at, I'm still young, I don't know what's going on, and I just say, I'm going with you. So we end up leaving late at night, packing up our things and going. But from there, it felt like it increased more for me to want to question why I was here. And being young, you never have those kind of thoughts. But for some people, that may be the case. You just wake up feeling this way all of a sudden. And even with people who might instinctually think that they're bisexual or gay at such a young age, it's like we're learning to develop these things. So in the same way, I felt like I didn't know why I was here, and that's a strange thought because children or people shouldn't have to think that way the first years they've lived of their life, especially at their youth. But to question something as big as that, to wonder why we're even here, is something very absurd, I feel. But I know it's very common with other people as well. So that's at a very young age, and up until the point where I leave with my mom, it had only increased more for me to want to be like, well, I don't know why I'm here. I want to seek truth. I want to find out what this is because I don't know what this is. So I end up going with my grandma, and that's when I just started acting horribly, horribly. And it'd get to a point where I would just go out doing things just to do them, to experience them, because I didn't know what these things would mean for me. Just that it was an experience that felt like that was bad to other people, because maybe I wouldn't be at school, or maybe I was doing drugs. But on my side of things, I thought, I'm just experiencing this. This is nothing bad. But for so long, especially in middle school, going on in middle school, I questioned these things a lot, and I always wondered, but why? And I could understand why when people abuse these things, when they get out of hand, and when you see these things more cultivated throughout our lifespan, as to a 13-year-old just trying weed for the first time, and a 40-year-old man who's been smoking for years now, right? So I could understand that. But in my mind, I just always wondered, why, and if I'm just experiencing, why do I need to feel so controlled by the world? And it wasn't a rebellion type of feeling. It was more of a, this is who I am. I don't know who y'all are. You can tell me who you are, but at the end of the day, I'm just living life like anyone else. And I don't know why I'm here. With a genuineness, I didn't know why I was there. So I'd eventually leave that place. And before I leave my grandma's, I'm there with my sister still. And my mom ends up finding somebody and leaving with them. So I'm leaving with my mom. That whole time that I was there was about, I want to estimate about 4 to 5 years of us staying there until we would eventually leave. And I find myself with my stepdad. And those whole 4 or 5 years of just doing bad things, wondering why it was so bad, or just trying to experience something so I could come closer to knowing truth, was when I had reached my point, my peak moment of all this. And this is when I really started to notice how things were starting to fall, because I had finally reached my peak. I'm experiencing, and now I'm getting to a point where I'm no longer experiencing. Now this is serious, and this might end up messing up my life for the next 10, 20 years if I don't change it. So I end up moving to a little place called Pasadena. And in Pasadena, before I end up going there, I lived for a little bit of time with my stepdad's sister. And I just remember crying all that time, crying a lot, not knowing how to explain that to anyone. And I was a teenager. I just left all my friends from where my grandma was at. And I'm moving to this big city where I don't know anyone. And because we had trouble moving from place to place, even in between those 4 to 5 years, I never really got along. And if I did, it was for a very short time before I moved. So being there with my stepdad's sister, I would just drink. At a very young age, I'd start drinking, I'd start crying. All my days, at least for the most part, I'd be okay. And then we ended up going to Pasadena where I'd still been talking to this girl, and I'm still having to experience all these things. And I just remember seeing God around all those times where I'd go out at night, walking the streets because I didn't feel comfortable sleeping in my own house, or when I'd go out finding friends that I shouldn't hang out with because I felt alone, that I felt God was there the most in my life when I didn't know what God was. But it's in moments like those where you feel very comfortable in the moment, like nothing's happening, nothing serious is happening, but when you look back, you realize how big that was and how much it actually did affect you. It may have caused trauma, or it may have embarked something on your life that you took up into your 20s, 30s, 40s, right? And I'm just experiencing these things like any other teenager, someone in their youth that doesn't know God, finding Him in these odd places where I would go. And I go out far in depth in Houston, from downtown, from all the way to the outskirts of Houston, with friends and people I didn't know, or even find myself walking there sometimes just to go out and see. Where I'd eventually end up leaving there after some years. And around this time also, before I had left Pasadena, I remember taking my sister out to this park. And it was in that time of silence when I would walk my sister from the apartments that we'd stay at to this little park down the road, about a mile down, that I would feel complete, like I was doing something right. And at such a young age, we don't know what that is. Sometimes it's just working, sometimes it's taking care of mom, washing the dishes, going to bed early so we could wake up tomorrow for school and being on time. But taking my sister out to that park, I realized that part of me felt like I had a responsibility to take care of her and take her to this park so she wouldn't worry too much about what was going on at the house. Because around this time also, because I had been experiencing so much, I had gotten to the point where I was falling to depression, anxiety, drug use, and having these traumatic breakdowns where I'd be in and out of mental hospitals because I wasn't reaching a point of conclusion on what I needed to do or what I was trying to do, because I continued to think that I was finding truth. I needed to find truth. And staying at the house was very crowded, so being with two other siblings that I had just had in the midst of that time, from when we were at my grandma's to with my stepdad that they had had together. I am struggling to be there. So taking her to the park was something that I could feel at ease. And as I would see her play, I would sit in this stillness as I would just watch. So all the other grown men and women would be there with their children. I saw myself being the only one there, really just watching, just watching. Some people would think I maybe came there to spend my time there, play around, but other times it was just knowing that I was there watching. And in that time, I could hear myself saying, "You need to go home." And I didn't know what home was. And even in that time, I couldn't tell you that it was home that I was asking for, but a part of me felt like it needed to find rest. And one of the greatest things about Jesus was that he gave me rest. He provided to me a rest when I didn't feel rest, comfort when I shouldn't have felt comfort. And even now, seeing how I go from Pasadena to LaPorte, Texas, where I would eventually end up for quite some time in my high school years, that I would only find that stillness more and more in my life when I felt like I was alone or I was in a place where I didn't need to be, that I could find myself in that stillness. And I really didn't know what part of that meant to me, but it had been so relevant in my life to continue to seek these experiences that I'd eventually move to LaPorte, Texas, where I'd be close by the pier of this beach and going out every day to go and just sit and walk around and find myself at these fields of parks where no one would go, surrounded by trees, where I'd sit in that stillness that I'd eventually leave to go and find what that would mean with someone that I wasn't too sure on would commit to that. And around this time, I'm still young. I'm still young, and I put my confidence in trusting somebody that I don't know. So I end up telling my mom, "Hey, I'm going with this. Can I get this bus ticket to where my grandma was at?" This girl was where my grandma had been previously. And I tell her, "Hey, can I go? I want to make it to homecoming with her." And they end up agreeing on that and sending me out. As I'm going out, I realize that I'm not going to come back, and maybe I might figure out something there. But I hadn't decided on whether or not I was going to do that. And as I'm on the bus to my grandma's near Austin, I'll say that it was very near to Austin, at least where this girl was at. And they end up picking me up. This girl and her friend that was driving the car that was his ends up taking me. And as we're there, I'm wasting all my money. I'm spending everything that I have because I have been working that time. And I just don't care because I'm like, part of me was still trying to experience what I had felt when I was alone, when I couldn't find any guidance, or when I would be out at night just lost. And it would transfer over to just spending all this money, um, sleeping with this girl that I didn't really know, doing these drugs and just finding purpose in that. And then there'd come a time when as after I had decided to stay there, and I eventually stay with this girl's grandmother, that I'm smoking and drinking with friends, and I'm going into to use the restroom. But before going into the house, I hear someone just call out my name. They just call out my name, and I look, I'm looking, and I'm thinking, I answer, and I'm like, yes, hello? And at first it sounded like my mom, but it wasn't my mom. And it felt so vivid to me. From that time forward, I just went inside, went back out, and around this time too, I'd go to the backyard where I was staying with all these people who'd come together and drink every now and then throughout the week. And these are all people in high school. And around this time too, I had dropped out, so I wasn't, it was weird being around these people that I wasn't even in school with. And I just hear this song, and it says, and this song was, it was, what was it? Ah, yeah. Simple Man. And I want to say it was Leonard Skinner, but you might need to correct me. Simple Man. And this ends up being the song that my mom sends to me, that she sent to me when I was young. She's like, son, I'm sending you this song. I want you to carry this song in all your life. And it ends up playing in that campfire uncoincidentally. And I'm thinking, what is this? You know? Why am I high and drunk and then hearing this and then feeling convicted that something is telling me to go back, go back home. And again, at this time, I didn't know what home was. So I'm confused in between deciding, do I need to stay or should I just go? And fighting with the fact that I didn't feel neither the desire to go home or the desire to stay. So I end up just leaving. And as I'm going back, I'm struggling with being at home where I was at with my mom and my stepdad. Everything was silent. And after this, I just remember spending a lot of my time just outside where I'd find God in my heart, in my surroundings. When the wind would blow, the trees would pull forward with leaves flowing in the mist, that I felt I was with God, but I didn't know what that was. And that could mean something different to you too. But being there that time after returning from my grandma's, already breaking up with that girl and losing a lot more than I had really gained, we eventually end up moving from that place. And from there, I'd end up in a place called Crosby, where I'd make the biggest decision of my life to find God. And this would be around a time where I was close to being an adult. I was about 17, I want to say. And I'm making the biggest decision of my life to just leave permanently leave. And I'm at the edge of graduating from high school, but because I had moved so many times, especially from regular school to alternative schools in the same county, that I didn't even care to appreciate what this would mean, because I had already done all these other things, dropped out, experienced various things that I didn't expect to experience, and then find myself here doing school online early just to graduate and not even feeling satisfied with that. I end up leaving the day before I graduate to go and find God, where I would end up with my dad. Him not knowing that I would come back, going by faith, not realizing that this would be the pivotal moment in my life where I'd find a group of men locally around this city that I was in, talking to at their house, where they would preach the gospel to me. And I come to know that God had brought down a vessel, a human, to come down and explain God's love to us, so that when he died, he could rise again and prove to us that this was true, and eventually leave us, but leave us with knowing that he had done these things. Leave us with knowing that he would still be there even after the fact that he's gone, and knowing that he was there when I didn't know, watching me from the curtains, just like this. Or when I'm just afar off and he's just right here watching. That all this time after trying to seek truth, I had finally found it, and I'd finally reached some understanding. And this might not be easy for everyone to receive, but it was for me, especially having come up from feeling lost, depressed, anxious, and then seeing how through all these detrimental moments that would shape me, that I could reach a point in time where I felt confident in believing that because I had seen all these crazy things and experienced all these crazy things, that why wouldn't I believe God could do this? We hear so often about demons and demonic presences and the devil, but we care less to really see where God is shaping us. And I really felt that. I felt that way every time that I had been sent out to the mental hospital, or I had been sent out far away, far from my parents, or when I was walking down the roads all alone, or when I hurt myself from self-harm or drug use, and how I feel in that time where I felt the most confident that I was with God without really knowing I was with God, and constantly seeking those moments so that I would eventually stay with him. So it is in our experiences that exchange for the presence of God, but knowing God is there with us. And that was one of those moments that I realized that God was really there. And now, being the age I'm at, 4 years with the Lord, I can really say that from a confidence that he was, and I didn't know. So I just hope that y'all can take this message delightfully. And thank you for joining me in my sister's room. Take care.